Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm going to ramble through this, the same thing I say every time. So we're going to continue on the Land Rover Series, putting in a Mercruiser Chevy 153 into a Land Rover Series 2A with a Scotty Adapter. So today we're going to be talking about the cooling system. So we're going to continue using the Land Rover Series 3 Radiator, and we're going to have to transfer, we're going to go over to an electric fan because the manual fans that run off the water pump isn't going to work. You'll see in the video the pumps actually move 3 inches lower than Chevy one's 3 inches lower than Land Rover one. So you'll see that, and then we're going to come up with a fan. I'm not going to buy some fancy dancy fan kit or whatever. So what I'm going to do is a buddy of mine gave me some fans, and I'm going to make one of those work, and you'll see that in the video. So we're going to build a shroud for the fan, for the electric fan. We're going to have a fan controller. We're going to have a controller that does the low and high. And then I came up with hoses, the hoses that connect the radiator to the Chevy engine, the Land Rover radiator. So we got that, and I already got the thermostat in it from whenever we built the engine. So we're going to fill it with coolant and everything like that. So this should be the whole cooling system. It's a longer video, so hang in there as I go over every detail for the cooling system. So thank you very much for liking and subscribing, and always all your positive comments are always great. So enjoy the video, and I'll see you at the end. Here's the radiator we're going to be putting on. It's the same one that was on the truck before. It's a Series 3 going on a Series 2A, but it's the new one I had on there before. And with the downlet, the bottom tube goes off to the angle, and this one's still in the same position as like a regular Series 1, but this Series 2, I mean. But Series 3, they kicked this off to the side. So let's take this, put it onto here, and we'll measure how much room we have between the fan here, and the water pump where a fan would be, to the radiator. So I could see, I already know like from our measurements and everything, this radiator, which our fan would actually fit on here, our Land Rover fan would fit, has the same bolt pattern as this. But this water pump sits 3 inches lower than our Land Rover pump. So we can't use the regular shroud and everything, but we'll see how this plays out or whatever today. So let's take a look. I'll grab the radiator and put it on the truck. So we got our radiator on there. I put a block of wood here just to kind of hold it so it doesn't fall over and it's not so hard to work or whatever. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this on camera. Let me bring you in closer here. So right now, you can see here where our fan would be, it sits a lot lower, like 3 inches lower than it would with a Land Rover one. So if it was up here higher, we could have used the Land Rover fan. But now we can't use that, so we got to come up with a solution. So let's take a measurement from here to our fan, which really to our radiator, I mean. So we see how much spacing we have from here to here, which is actually we want to measure from this lip here, because this will be where I'm thinking we'll mount something right here to this shroud. A shroud of some sort to here, against our mounts that we already have for the Land Rover shroud, and to the water pump. We'll kind of measure from here to here and kind of get our sizes from here. We have roughly about 5 inches. From in between here to here, we have only about 5 inches of space. So when we put a fan on, I picked up, a friend of mine gave me a bunch of fans. I'll show you here in a minute, but we're going to see if we can get an electric fan to work on this thing. So let's take this off. I'll take it back off. Oh, I put some bolts over here into the front. The 3 bolts here are just kind of sitting there so we get the spacing right. And then we have our radiators kind of straight up and down. So that gives us a pretty good distance and try to get that to fit in there. So let's pull out some fans and we'll take a look and see what we're going to do. So these are the fan options that we have or whatever that a friend of mine gave me. He said, you know, these are just ones he had and you could just do whatever you want with them. Cut them up and do whatever you want. So these 2 over here from a Volkswagen Tiguan, both about the same year in the 2000s. Then this came off of a New Beetle, an early New Beetle, Volkswagen New Beetle. So these ones were brand new, but these ones were used. But I got this one to work. First we'll start with these ones and I'll show you why I ended up using these ones. So this one here, that's actually shorter. It's like 4 inches from here to the floor up. This one is about 4.5 inches from the floor and to up. So I was hoping to use this one because it's a little bit lower profile. And I planned on using like the plastic too to hold it as kind of a shroud for onto the radiator. So I tried this one, but these need like a special module to control them and everything. So they couldn't really work out very good. So then I think these are brushless motors in this, which was, they don't use much power, but they go really fast. So these ones have just regular DC motors in it. And the cool thing about these ones, and why I'm going to end up using this instead of these ones, because I'm not spending more money on a module and all that kind of stuff for used parts. So this one is actually brand new in the box he gave me. And this one actually is a 2-speed. It has a low speed and a high speed. Then this one also has a low speed and a high speed for like air conditioning and all. So I'm going to end up using this one, even though it's taller and it's a little bit more awkward. I think it's really going to work out. And it does work out actually, because I already test fit it. So what I did is, so what I did was I just took it and I cut this one right off. I took the smaller one off. And we'll put that one back in the box. We don't need that one. And I cut this one right off. So I ended up cutting this off. So we don't need that. So I'm just going to use this fan right here. I drilled 4 holes for mounting up in here and here. And then I kept the original wiring down through here. And I cut it off and I extended the wires to go over to our fan controller. So let's take this and put it up on the radiator. So we take this, we just kind of set it up there to get our eyeball on how it's going to fit on here. So you can see it should work pretty good on there. Let's get a measurement here. So from here up, we're probably about 3.5 inches right now, but we're going to actually put this on top of this piece right here where the shroud goes. So this fan's going to work pretty good. So what we're going to do is I'll put the shroud on that I came up with and I'll show you that next. So here's the little shroud that I came up with. What I did is what I wanted to do is I took the fan and I pushed it up as high as I could and over to the side. So whenever it sits at the engine, it'll be up as high as possible and it'll be over this way a little bit, just a smidge. And so it'll actually clear everything in this area because I did a test fit on it and it seemed to work really good. So let me show you the shroud. So what I did is I just put the fan on here and I just took a strip of metal, put it up here, and then I took it down and I put a strip down here on the bottom and then held the fan up on top of it. Let me show you. So then it went on just like that. And I made this strip and then I made this strip to hold the fan up. And then I made this strip down here and just cut it out as well. So then I had a piece of metal kind of boxing it all in. And then I took it off and I did I did a tracing actually. I traced it around onto the metal out on the edges so there's no air restraints on it. Let me put this back down. So what I did is you could see the curve here. So when I drew a line with a Sharpie around, so I cut it out, and then I put a little curve on it, just to give it a little bit more strength, and plus maybe help the airflow or something. It probably doesn't do anything at all, but I thought it really looked nice whenever I turned it up like that. So again, aesthetics or function, so I don't know which one it is. But aesthetically and function, it probably works great. So we're going to put I put these little curves on here coming up around where the fan is. And then whenever I put it on and I was looking, this actually has a weird little cutout. You see them cutouts down through here? It has these weird cutouts that help direct and separate the air on the original car. So I put a little piece here to fill in that gap. So when the air comes through, the air should pull right through the radiator and not come out through the sides at all. So that's the main thing why the shroud's there, is to hold the fan, and also, so when that fan turns on, it pulls all the air all the way around the fan, instead of like mounting it on the radiator, which it only is going to cool a certain part of it. Where if you have a shroud, it's going to suck the air the whole way around your whole face of your radiator. So that's why I made a shroud. And plus I like it because it's a little bit more sturdy too, to keep that fan. I'm always worried about poking holes in radiators, so that's also why the shroud's there. So the shroud worked out nice. There, I poked all the holes so then I can use the original screw holes. And then on here at the bottom, I did a little cutout so it can go around here, a little cutout through the top up here. And then to mount the fan to the shroud, like I said, we're going to use the screws here for the radiator there. But on the back side of it, I welded nuts, blind nuts, onto the inside, here and here. So when I put the fan on, I can put it on without having to worry about bolting that on. So now that that's welded on, and let's say if the fan goes bad or if I need to replace it, I can just take the whole assembly off, or I can take these screws off right here and just buy a fan for a new Beetle, and I can replace the fan really easy. So there's a lot of good options, and plus this is a brand new one. I mean, it was spanking brand new right in the box and everything, so it's going to last a long time. So let me show you a little test fit. I'll put it together a little bit, and I'll put it on the truck to show you the test fit of it. All right, so here we are. We have our fan on there with the shroud and the fan on the radiator. So let's take a closer look. So you can see here, there's the water pump down there. That's the piece that sticks out the furthest. And here's our fan right here with our support board just to keep it in place. So you can see we have lots of space in between where the fan fits and the water pump, and you can see I can get my whole hand down through there pretty easy. So it worked out pretty good moving the fan up as far as I could. So then I had plenty of space down underneath here to get down underneath and it not hit the fan or anything like that. So there's our fan right there, and I think it looks pretty good with just the way that it is, because we got that nice even space going all around. So, all right, so the next thing, okay, so how are we going to wire this up? Of course, we're going to have relays. Woo! Let's take a look at the relays. Let me get it off the truck, and we'll take a look at the relays. So the radiator's now off the truck. So, like I said before, this is a low-high fan, which is a very simple high-low fan. So all you have is literally black is the ground. Then I think yellow is the low, and then white's the high. So, or vice versa. I'm not really sure. I can't quite remember. But I have it coming over here, and I extended it. There was actually the original cable was here for the Volkswagen. So I cut that off, and all I did was I put on the same color wire is that, ran it over, put it in a little holder right here and one of the screws that were already there from the fan. Brought it over, and now I have two relays over here on the side of the radiator. So one's marked high, one marks low. So, you know, high speed, low speed. So, let me see here. So the high speed one is the yellow, and the low speed is the white cable. And then we have just our ground. That'll be going to the battery itself, directly to the battery. But, let's do a little quick test and I'll show you how much wind that comes out of this thing. It's unbelievable the amount of air coming out. So let me hot wire these relays and we'll take a look at how much wind comes out of this thing. Okay, so we're going to look at the high and the low. It's all bolted down all around and everything. And it's surprising how much it doesn't vibrate either, even though it's all bolted down. It's pretty smooth on the way it goes. So I got the relays wired up. So we're going to watch the high side. No, we're going to look at the low and then the high. So there's low. It's not really too loud or anything, but it's a good amount of air coming out of there. You can see. Works pretty good. Like that's low right there, okay? And you put your hand on the other side of the shroud and other side of the radiator, and you can feel the air just ripping through the whole way around the radiator. So it's a lot of air coming through on low. So let's switch it to high. Here's low. Now look at that. It's crazy the amount of air that comes out on high than low. Wow, and it's just ripping through the radiator like crazy. All right, so enough of that fun. So the low and the high is really great, but you got to be able to control the low and the high of the fan itself. So let's go over to the workbench and I'll show you what I'm going to use to control the low and the high temperature in this. But that's pretty amazing. I can sit there and watch that all day long. So hopefully the engine won't even run that hot. It'll always only run on low. So, but we'll see how it goes though in the future in the testing. So let's go over to the workbench. And I'll show you how we're going to control this. We're over here at the workbench. So, before I got the two-speed fan, I was just going to use an electric fan. So, I went onto eBay and I bought a cheapy controller. I mean, this was only like 13 bucks or something like that, US. So, it came with a fuse, it came with a relay, and it came with, which I thought was a nice one, is a fuse, an overheat fuse that turns on and off when you pulls too much power. So, but then all it has is this one thermocouple inside here that you put inside by your thermostat, and it has its own set time that it turns on and off with a certain temperature. Like this is 185 degrees Fahrenheit is when it's supposed to turn on, but then it turns on and it keeps running and running and running until your temperature gets down to the below 185, which is actually below 185. So when you go up above, it goes just full blast. You're on one speed with the relay, and then that's it. So I did some testing with this, and it didn't really work that great, but it worked fine. I did test with a light. It turned a light on and off, or whatever, at certain temperatures of boiling water. So it does work. So this is one option if you have a single speed fan. But since we got a double, I got that fan for free, basically. So I put this one to the side, and I started doing some research online on fan controllers. And I mainly wanted to get a low and high, a simple low and high controller that will do low and high. So basically, so what I did is I found this company. This is not a sponsorship, that nobody sponsors me. So I found this one. This is actually in Canada. It's called HPC. Harrison Performance controllers. And this was the only one that I found was really actually affordable in a grand scheme of all these little fancy controllers that are on the internet and everything. So this one was the only one where it came with, I'll show you what it came with. It came with the module here that controls your high-low fans and with your temperature gauge. Not your temperature gauge, your temperature sender. And it came with the sender here, which has a low and high or whatever kind of magic that's going on here. I think it's actually a powered one, so it reads the actual temperature coming out of your thermostat, where then it can adjust as needed as it needs to work. So I'm going to go over how it works. It also came with a wiring harness with it. It had these nice connectors as well. So I was very happy with the kit to go for and get it. So what I did is I did a little test fit on the truck already. So I extended the longer wires, like to the high, low, and all that kind of stuff. And then the ground, I already put the ground on the end of it. So the wiring harness is about ready. And then I want to mount it onto the truck. I don't want to actually screw this onto the truck. So I made a little bracket to hold it right where the, I'll show you on the truck, but it's going to be right where the voltage regulator is, or was before we went to an alternator. So I made a little bracket there so now I could bolt it onto here and then go from there. So how does this thing work? Which is pretty nifty how it works. So what you do is you take off the back here, and it's adjustable. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I really liked it, is that it's actually fully adjustable. So what it does is you set this to a certain temperature. We'll say 185 or 180, but we're gonna have to play with what temperature it should be later on. So in here, inside, there's a little dial. In this dial, it has temperatures in Fahrenheit around where you want it to turn on, okay? So like right now, it's kind of sitting at 180 degrees, if you can see that. It's so dark around here, but it's set at 180 degrees right now. So what it does, it turns when it hits 180 degrees, it clicks on the low fan through your relays that you have beside the fan. So it clicks on low. So when it goes down to 10 degrees below that, so if you have it on 180, it goes down to 170, it'll shut off the fan, and then it'll just let it keep going again. And then it hits 180 again, around that temperature, I guess, then it'll click on the low fan. So as your temperature keeps going up, if it sees that you're going 10 above that, up to like 190, and again, I think this is why they have adjustable, so you can see how it fits for your truck, because thermostats open different times, radiators cool different ways, and all that kind of stuff. So you have adjustability to test it to see where you want things to come on. So, all right, so we're starting to get kind of hot. We're at 190 degrees. These are just fictional numbers. They're not exact numbers for anything. So you get it to there. So then it knows temperatures are rising, the low's not working. Let's click on the high fan. So it goes and tells the high relay to click on, and you go the full blast with the high fan on. So then that will actually cool it down to 10 degrees, and it'll probably go down to low and then go down to off. Or maybe goes high, just stays high until the temperature goes way down and shuts off. I'm not 100% sure. So anyways, this seemed like a really good option for my truck and what I'm going to do with that 2-level fan. And again, there's no relays provided with this. I use my own relays. So a lot of kits have relays with them, and that just adds to the cost, but a relay is only like $2. So charging more for a relay sometimes, just for a simple little controller, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to leave that at 180. It looks to be 180 or so. We're just going to leave it at that for now, and then we'll go from there, and we'll see when the fans kick on, when we actually start driving it around and everything. So that's how the little module works. And also there's a little light to tell you what's going on. It has power. It blinks, I think, for different, if it's low fan, high fan, or whatever the heck it's doing. I think it blinks different ways too. So, and again, it came with this. Like I said, it's actually a real temperature gauge. And nice is they give you all these instructions as well all different ways of switching it on. You could do a single fan or just on low. You don't have to do low and high. You could just do it any way you want. You could do separate fans, blah, 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 blah. But we're going to be setting it up like this. So you have one fan with, one fan does and has low and high in one fan, and it uses 2 relays. And then here's our controller. So the neat thing is that the controller only hits the negative part of your relay to click it on and off. So you have your power coming in, and then once you turn your key on, your key comes over, it powers up the trigger side of the relay. And then your fan controller actually tells it which one to do the negative part to ground out the relay to make it snap on. If that makes sense to you, if you know what I mean. So, and also another cool thing about this is it has an override, and in the instructions it has it as well. But you can run from the controller out to a switch underneath your dash. And that'll override it and go full blast. It'll go on high, and you can leave it on there as long as you want, or you watch your temp gauge and it goes down. There's an override on it, so you don't have to worry about it not coming on whenever you see it's overheating or the module fails or something. So it's a fail safe. So that's pretty nice too. So I know I explained a lot there. So that's why I went with this controller. And here's my version of the wiring diagram, which I just used because we had our own different colors for our fan, and our relays had our own colors and stuff like that. So I kind of made it up my own little wiring diagram there for it. So then I picked up a switch, a nice little, look at that marbleized switch for under the dash switch. So I'm going to use this. So let's go and hook up all this. All right, we're going to put in our temp sensor, and since it's it doesn't have to be grounded through, it's actually just a sensor, and it's actually powered and everything. So this one you can put goop on to keep it from leaking, and where normally the other ones they ground through the sensor for the relay ones. So you'll need to get an adapter that goes from, I think it's 3/4 to a 1/2 inch. So this is a 1/2 inch NPT. They go into our housing here. All right, so you got that snugged up in there. Not crazy tight, but just enough to keep it. So our little fan controller is going to go right here. Here's the bracket that I made. So if we need to adjust this, we can always take it off and adjust as needed. And there we are. The module's in there. So let's grab some wires and we'll wire up the radiator. So I won't show you that because it's just basically running wires. I'll show you at the end whenever I get it all wired up. The controller is now mounted in. It's all wired up. I have the wire coming across like this for the temperature gauge. Well, the thermocouple goes right on top of our thermostat housing. So that's there. And then the rest of the wires come up and around and go into our little harness here to go over to our relays, to our fan. So our fan's wired up, and also I put the hot start one underneath the dash too. I'll show you that one in a little bit. But next thing we're going to be doing is figuring out the hoses, how we hook up our radiator to it. So what we're doing is this one here, the top one, it's 1.5 inches diameter. And the Land Rover, this is the original Land Rover radiator, it's actually 1.25 inches. So we're going to have to go 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches. And down at the bottom where the water pump comes out here, we have 1 3/4 inches. And it's going to come around over to here. And again, this one is 1 1/4, just the same as the top one. So here's the solution I came up with. So we can get this hose connected to here and this hose connected to here. All right, so let's figure out our hoses. So this is the original Land Rover hose. It's 1 1/4 to 1 1/4, 90 degree, as you can see. This is the top one. And the bottom one for a Series 3, it kind of has this shape like this. A Series 2 is a little bit different. But it's a 1 1/4 to 1 1/4 also on this one. So in order to get the new engine there to fit up to the Land Rover Radiator, what I did is I was watching some YouTube video like we all do. We all sit there and watch them. So I saw some guy trying to do a start of a 1958 Dodge pickup truck. It was a D100. And I noticed his elbow on his radiator coming down looked just like this in shape. So then I went on to Rock Auto and I looked it up. And the elbow at the top for 1958, I guess you could do any 50s Dodge. You could see that with the hoses whenever you go on the rockauto.com. But the D100 was 1 3/4 ID. And then Coronet, which was a car, had a V8 in it, but it only had 1 1/2 inch diameter. So what I did was I ordered the 1 1/2 inch diameter hose for a Coronet, and it was 90 degrees. So this is what I have here. Like, they don't give you much dimensions. All they do is tell you that this is 1 1/2 and this side's 1 1/2. So you can see we have plenty to cut off, and we have plenty of left over, so we can use it for other things or whatever. But this hose will work for the top. Okay, so we can crush 1 1/2 here, and we should be able to crush down the 1 1/4 up on the radiator. So we'll do that. That'll be the top hose. Then the bottom hose, this one I found, I think if you used a 1 3/4, it'll work on the bottom as well for the Dodge hose, because it would be just like this, but it'll be 1 3/4, which we need for the bottom. And again, you could cut it off and use it whatever way you want to match up with our Series hose. So what I ended up doing, actually, whenever I did the hard start, well, not hard start, but the start of the engine outside of the truck, I went to auto parts store and I just found a hose. I looked around in their hoses and I found one that had 1 3/4 on the end, and it kind of angled like this. I don't know what the part number was, but this is just one that I happened to find there. So I cut it off and I used it to do the startup video. So I'm going to use it to this as well. So since this is a big step for 1 3/4 down to 1 1/4, I got an adapter from Amazon. It was pretty cheap or whatever, but 1 1/2 to 1 1/4, and we can make it fit on here like this. So we use where does it go like this? I think it goes like this. This one goes onto the radiator. Then this one, the adapter, we can slide into here like that, clamp it on. And then our little piece here, the odd piece that I had, that'll go onto here. But if you had like the 1 3/4 like I was just talking about, if you put this into there, you should be able to crush it down onto there pretty good. And it should still fit on there. So I just happen to have this one that fit on there perfectly and went around. So it kind of stretches around. So this is the bottom one, that's on. And then the top one, it's ready to roll. So we'll chop this one off and make it fit on there, and let's go fit these on. We're over on this side. I'm going to put the lower Series one on the bottom. Okay, so then we got the top one with our adapter. We'll put that on. Bit of a pain in the butt to get to the clamps here on underneath, but got it. See, the coolant hose comes out, comes over and around, comes up over and goes into there. So bottom hose is on, top hose is done. So the last thing before we fill it up with coolant is I wanted to have an overflow jar over here, or a can. So I don't like the Series 3, and I didn't want to buy anything either. So what I did is I walked around the house and I found a tomato sauce jar. I put some rubber on the back of it. I made a little bracket here with some springs tied into there. So you could take this, that. Then that's there. There's the jar. Then we'll take this and I'll cut that off. That will say about right there. And there's our radiator overflow jar right there. So the fender should come across like this and clear it too whenever I put it on. So that's done. So let's fill it up with coolant. Well, thank you for staying to the end of the video. So that the one thing we're going to have to see whenever it's actually started and running is adjust that the thermostat for the cooling fans. We're going to have to adjust that. I have a feeling we're going to just see how that goes and then just play it by ear and adjust as needed. So anyways, so thank you for watching, liking, subscribing, and following along, and I'll see you in the next video. It'll be something, I'm not sure what we're going to be doing next on the series, on this engine swap. Probably get the carburetor working and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, thank you. Stay awesome because you are awesome. Alrighty, bye-bye.